Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Always Aggressive podcast. I'm Hunter Massengill, alongside head coach Tony Ursuline, supervisor of ops Tanner Lipset, Corey Palm behind the scenes as our producer today. We'll cut right to the chase. We won't beat around the bush. Dylan Leidy getting the number one spot on the podium this past weekend in Vegas. Clearly, always a big tournament for Leidy. He must love Vegas. He always goes out there and competes well. He was seeded third, beat the 14, 11, 2, and 1 seeds in the tournament to get the championship spot. According to Intermat rankings, that's 5, 6, and 13. I'm going to say a lot of rankings today, just for context, for our viewers' sake. I know you don't care about the rankings as much, but just for context for the fans at home. One of which of those matches beating Labriola from Nebraska, who he's kind of had a back and forth with, that Labriola has beat him the last couple times in overtime. Of course, this one going to sudden victory as well, but going Leidy's way this time in sudden victory.
Yeah, I think this was the rubber match, so to speak, because they were 2-2. Leidy having won the first two, Labriola, nipping him last year with routing time in both of his victories. Mm-hmm. So it was nice to see Dylan, go get the takedown, even though it was overtime. It took us maybe a little longer than I would have liked, but to see him just kind of take it in his own hands and go get the takedown, both in the finals as well, right? He didn't let it go to the ride out. He took it in his own hands and he went and got the takedown. Nice to see from him. He's a very confident kid, and you can see it in how he competes. He knows he can wrestle hard for a long time, and he'll win the tough positions.
And it was good to see in that match, again, going back to that semis against Labriola, he's kind of compiling his knowledge of the wrestler that he's facing. Like I said, he's lost in overtime the last 2 years. To be able to come into this one knowing that that's what, like, Labriola kind of had his game plan coming in, and Leidy was able to flip the script, make it a sudden victory, and still be aggressive in that overtime period rather than, kind of sitting back and waiting for Labriola to do something.
Yeah, you always want to take it in your own hands. I'm not a big fan of the 30-second rideouts, to decide a match between two good kids. So right. You just, we preach to our guys all the time. You take it in your own hands, go get it. Don't wait to see what happens. Go execute. And when we're back in our room every day, we end every go with sudden death. It's score to win. And so, you just want your kids, to be there a lot and to feel like I understand what I have to do in this situation to be successful.
I thought it was great too to see Leidy go. I know that you guys have been pressing him to other parts of his offense. Go with your double leg, go with your ducks, go with he's got some stuff in there that he doesn't break out very often, and to see him hit that blast double to finish it off against Labriola was pretty cool.
Yep.
It looked good. I watched the match back this morning, and the double leg stepped through to get the trip as well. I mean, it was good for a sudden victory takedown.
Yeah, strong finish, right? You don't want to leave any doubt. I mean, not only did he hit the shot, but then he went and got the double leg, leaves no room for the scrambling, right? Mm-hmm. He did a nice job controlling the finish to leave no doubt to get the two.
I got one more thing on Leidy that I wanted to add in there. Coach can touch on this a little bit if he wants to. He may not want to. I thought a really cool thing about Dylan winning the tournament, he got to go backstage and talk to the media. Flo interviewed him, the open mat interviewed him, and I was blown away by the passion that he brought in that interview and how none of it was about him. He sat there and he talked about his teammates. He talked about he was upset that we weren't going to be able to get up to third or fourth in the team standings at the time. Or it was still possible at the time, but it was a long shot. As excited as he was about winning himself, he was more upset about that we couldn't get there, and just went on and on about his teammates and about the coaching staff, and he got a little too riled up at times.
The language was a little bit colorful.
He broke some SID rules, and he and I had some words about it. And of course,
he listens to his coach too much in the practice.
I was he threw him under the bus too. That was the crazy part.
He did throw me under the bus, didn't he?
Dylan threw Coach under the bus. But I was just, the maturity and the, just the passion that he brought for his team and for Purdue to that interview and whatnot. for an SID, you know, for that side of the comm side of me, I thought was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I will, say, Leidy has embraced the leadership role and understands what it is to lead within the team. So I think he's doing a good job this year of being aware of leading and his position with the team. And then I'll say that for the rest of the group. They've all embraced that. We have guys that embrace that more than ever now, and I think that's tremendous. It's not just every man for himself. The team is important. That experience is important. And ultimately, right, if we want to get to where we want to go in terms of Big Ten championships and placing, as a team in the national championships, in the top 4, you have to have that. It can't just be everybody out for themselves. You have to understand that it's about the group. And certainly you help the group by taking care of yourself, but man, you want to see your boys do well too. And those guys suffer every day in the room together, and I think they're getting to be a confident group, and they know what they can accomplish. But to see him, hey, as a team, that's important to him as well. It's nice, and I think the entire group feels that. Devin Schroeder and those guys. It's not just about them. They want to see their teammates do well too, and that's what's nice about this group.
It's amazing how that kind of stuff can bring a team together and make them tighter and make them closer when they see one of their leaders go achieve something so great, but then turn around and not make it about him.
Yeah,
make it about the group.
Yeah, and I would say from a recruiting standpoint, even that's something that we feel really good about, where it's not just we're not going to ask you to do this by yourself. You have a whole group of guys here who are really motivated at achieving at a high level, and then they want to support you in that way, right? And from the coaching staff to the team to everybody who's around them, Elaine and those guys. So that's definitely taken hold here, and we're excited about what that does for this group.
Culture.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Don't ever sleep on it.
Nope.
And it's these guys, they're setting expectations, they're setting a standard. Dylan going out and winning Vegas, which, as we always talk about, the gauntlet of a tournament. We listed the guys that he got through to get to that point.
Fourth Purdue CKLV champ all time.
It's guys like Leidy, guys like Schroeder that need to go to those places, because then they set a standard and they set an expectation for the rest of the team that third and fourth, while is great at a tournament like that, we've got higher expectations than that. That we want everyone, each weight class, at the top of the podium, and they're setting that expectation for everyone, including recruits that are considering coming to this school, coming to wrestle for you. Is that it's not placing just isn't good enough. That placing one is where we want to be at.
There's no doubt. I mean, when you see guys do it, it probably, it helps the young guys coming through, right? That they see, it can be done, and there's guys I'm rubbing elbows with every day that are doing it.
They start to believe,
and I can do it too. So that's definitely a good thing. I think the one thing you mentioned that I would want to kind of really emphasize is you just can't come out of this, too high, right? Like we had one guy win, and even the guy who won in Leidy, we can score sooner in the match. We can score more often. We have lots of offense. So you can't ever be satisfied, and that's something that we've really tried to emphasize in the program. Is, man, coming out, nice performance, guys. You did a good job. You fought hard. Here's some of our mistakes positionally, or maybe even how we started the match. Maybe we didn't start fast enough, but you cannot be satisfied. You can feel good about, okay, I'm making gains and I'm getting better, and that's reflected in how well you did in a very deep field. It was a deep field, and a lot of guys did really well. But man, we're still not where we want to be. Unless we came out with 10 champs, how good are you? You still got a lot of things to do.
Right. Schroeder placing second this past weekend. Started to beat Intermat. According to the Intermat rankings, came out yesterday. 14, 17, 15. Lost to number 2 in the rankings in the finals. I believe he moved up somewhere in a record like this past weekend, right? Didn't you say that yesterday?
No, he's gotten up to third. He's third all time. The other note,
back points.
Or
back
points.
points. Yes, sorry,
Right.
back points. He did become the second guy.
Yeah, that's what it
so
was.
he has now exceeded 100 back points in all 3 of his seasons. And the only other guy to do that all time was Jake Pataxel.
And we're not to Christmas.
And we're not to
Yep.
Christmas.
Yeah.
He's already over. He's got 104, and climbing.
Well, he's going to have to keep climbing if he wants that to take that record from Pataxel, because as we talked about,
that's a big
that
record.
is quite the record.
I still got to figure out how many Jake would have had.
If he'd been able to get 4.
Yeah.
That's an out-of-season assignment when you have time to
Seriously.
lock yourself in your office and pull the blinds down.
And even then,
Good luck.
Even
Yeah,
then,
right?
even then, it had to be a roundabout number because I mean, you never know how many
Right.
were on the edge, how many, maybe a referee gives them an extra one that he maybe shouldn't have gotten.
Crazy.
But Devin Schroeder having a good weekend, placing second, falling short in the finals, but still a good weekend for him.
Yeah, he's a handful, and he knows it. He's wrestling with an edge. He's a very confident kid. He wrestles through all positions. He's right. I like where he's at. With him. Yeah, this is the coach. I mean, I apologize, but we gave away an easy takedown from the front headlock where I know he got hit in the head. And
Never be satisfied, Coach.
Yeah, he got stunned a little bit, and he gave away an easy 2 there. We also had 2 waved off. If you guys remember, we won a scramble situation, and the official gave 2, and then we rolled out of bounds, and they took it back. And I know, Devin and I had talked, and he knew if he knew that he hadn't had 2 yet, he would have settled. He wouldn't have let the action go out of bounds, and he would have worked to finish. So, there's little things there. But, he knows he's right there. I think he's really excited about where he's going and what he has to do. So, overall, really good. But enough there that he's got to really shore up.
It was really hard for me to see that scramble from where I'm sitting, and I haven't gone back and watched it on video. Did he almost have a Peterson? Is that what it was? And then he transitioned.
He almost scored. He didn't score off the Peterson. That wasn't it. They didn't think the kid was kind of sitting up, and we were a little too parallel. But when we turned back in, we were kind of in a high crotch situation, and we had the hips down and the leg hooked. We just didn't have our right arm couldn't come out. Right, our right arm needed either cut off to the double or go find the head and cross-face him back and put him down. Our arm was trapped in, but the official still called 2. Okay, so now the kid tries to roll him out of bounds, and Devin's thinking, I have 2.
I got 2, yeah.
So he let the action go out of bounds. He should have settled, kept the kid's hips down, worked to cover. But that's a tough one to really get on Devin about. The only thing you can say is, hey, if there's any doubt in your mind because the arm's trapped, settle, hold him there, get the 2. Don't let him take the action out of bounds, especially if you're Devin anyway, because you want to keep him in bounds. Go get the wrist, go get a turn. Really open the match up. So
wait, you're saying Devin turns people?
Nah, that's what I heard somewhere.
But there's
It's
a larger
rumor.
point that can be made there is being able to stay in each individual moment. You said that you can't really blame him for not, they're going out of bounds, that he thought he had the points, but having that little bit of doubt to be able to go through that entire process in a matter of seconds, half seconds, to be able to make that decision that ends up being the difference in some matches.
Yeah, but that's how you got to be, right? I mean, that's the difference between the guys who are national champs or top 3 and the guys who are maybe rounded 12 at nationals. Are those opportunities you get, and how do you handle the opportunities? So, like I said, good tournament from a performance standpoint with Devin, but there's enough there that we really need to go back, work, and find ways to make that be the difference. The guy who's number 2 in the nation and was in the national finals last year, you got to find a way to win those key positions.
Sure.
Another fun note about Devin. Devin got his 2nd career fall, which seems silly for a guy that does as much turning as he does and scores as many bonus points as he does. That his fall over Brandon Courtney from Arizona State in the quarterfinals was just number 2 of his career.
Well, I think I could put those puzzle pieces together. Instead of keeping a guy and working towards the fall, he'd rather get his 4 points, turn him back over, get the 4 points again, turn him back over. Instead of
100%. Yeah.
spending the next 30 seconds trying to get that other shoulder down, he'd rather let him come back over and then go get his points again.
Listen, we got to get on Shop. Shop's got to do a better job.
No doubt.
The evolution
AJ,
of
pick
the
it
top
up.
game for Devin
Pick it up.
is we got to have a fall. So, okay, we got something to work on.
Hey, that fall was a pretty one though.
You listen, when you end a match, that's great, right? Let's get it done. End it.
Another guy placing second, Christian Bruner. I wouldn't say having a breakout weekend because everyone knows his ability. His wins in the past speak for themselves. But I would say he had a resurgent weekend since he's had, kind of wondering what was going on before in the beginning of the season. Comes out this weekend and gets some matches against guys that are at his level and ends up placing second. So I would say a resurgent weekend for Christian Bruner.
He's a guy who's been top 5 at Vegas before. He's been top 10 in the national rankings. He just had fallen out because he was redshirting. So, absolutely he made a lot from the opportunity he had, even though the score doesn't necessarily, indicate it. I thought he still has closed the gap from a standpoint on Colin Moore. He did get caught on his back late in the third, which really opened the match up. I think it was like 7-3 maybe going into the third thereabouts. And so I thought he's closing the gap. And actually Christian was in this morning watching film with me, and so I like where we're at. He's a kid that he came out of redshirt because he believes that he's good enough to win a national title and he can do this. Mm-hmm. So I think this weekend reflected it. Again, there's some things he's got to work on, but the most important thing is what are your expectations for yourself when you put your foot on the line? And he expects to win. He expects to compete with the best, and so now it's about tweaking positions, getting to your attacks. Taking certain things away from your opponents sometimes.
Mm. I'm going to jump in here. I know you go to somewhere like Vegas to sort of get away from the Big Ten a little bit if you can.
Yeah.
Is it good for him that for end of the year seeding purposes, he got a couple Big Ten opponents early?
Yeah, listen, we don't have Ohio State on the dual meet schedule, so that it was great for him to see more. It was great for him to see him. So absolutely, you want to see those guys. It'll make you better the next time. So that's what you're hoping for, and that's why you go to those big events. There's going to be Big Ten guys there. I think the Big Ten won half the weights. I mean, that's just off the top of my head quickly, so I don't have a stat.
That sounds right, though.
But that's
it's probably a good bet without even knowing anything that happened to think that the Big Ten won at least half of the weight classes.
Yeah. So, but no, it's good to see those guys, and some guys we're going to have in dual meets down the road. But we ran into a couple of Ohio State guys that we're not going to necessarily see, and so that's good. We'll have a better idea of what we have to do, what we need to work on as we go into Big Tens.
Yeah. Griffin Parriott getting second at 49. Kendall Coleman. Fourth. Sorry.
Fourth, yep.
Kendall placing fourth at 157. Kendall running into Hidley from NC State. Kind of got caught by his own knee in the second period, I believe. First loss of the season, though. Like Tanner said before we started, coming into the weekend 16-0, which, as far as we can date back, may be the best start.
If you know somebody that finished better than 16-0, send us a note.
Yeah, let us know, because as far as we know, Kendall Coleman having the best start to a Boilermaker wrestler season, as far as we can tell. Freshman start. Yeah. But first loss of the season this past weekend to a good opponent. You have to think that he'll be better for it coming out of this weekend.
Kendall competed well. Again, where he, a couple things showed up that he has to work on. Hidley, very, good competitor, good positional wrestler, creates pressure from good positions, and so he has to handle that a little bit better. Know what he's looking for. I think he got a little bit all over the place where he wasn't sure what he was looking for. He was just trying to create, and he needed to be a little bit more dialed in on what he was looking for, what he was trying to do. So no, I think it was good for him. Going into the tournament, his losses, those guys were 1 and 2. In the state, their rankings have since shuffled, so I think they may be down. Maybe it's 3 and 4, or 2 and 3. 2 and 3. Yeah. But so it's taking a really good kid to beat him. I think he knows he's right there. He's got to tweak a couple things, and so it was absolutely a good thing. Again, we talk about not seeing people necessarily again. I don't know that we'll bump into NC State until nationals. So it was. I think that's invaluable for him to see. Hidley and have a chance to feel it and what it's going to be, and then know what I need to do next time. So I thought it was great for him, but we've got to correct some things.
And it's a learning process too. He spent a lot of time on bottom in that match. Spent a lot of time on bottom this weekend, and coming into the weekend 16-0. Clearly, you don't spend a lot of time in those positions. You're in control most of the time, so it's just getting put in different positions outside of the wrestling room when you're actually in a real match. Mm-hmm. You can take a lot from that, learning what it is that your instinct is in those situations, and then learning what your instinct needs to be in those situations.
Yeah, tournament that deep, like the national championships, you come out with what I call a lot of areas of concentration. You find out where you really need to spend some time, and that's why you wrestle a good schedule, in my opinion. Sure. You don't want to be exposed at nationals right? And that be the first time. Like that. That's why I love being in the Big Ten. You're always in the fire, and you know what the standard is. And so Cliff Keen is just an early season version of that. So you know what we have to do. And again, he's got some work to do on some bottom stuff. He's not far away. Like I said, it's the effort is there. It's just positionally or tactically, what is he doing?
Right. Well, finished 5th overall at Cliff Keen out in Las Vegas. Up to what in the team rankings? Kind of all over the place.
We're kind of anywhere. So we're anywhere between a tie for 10th with track wrestling and I think 15th with flow. That sounds
Okay.
right. In the tournament polls, the the dual polls, we still can't figure that whole thing out.
Right.
But yeah, we're I think we're down at 20 in the dual poll for NWCA
Right.
and
Yep.
Now I know that
unranked other
rankings
places, which is weird.
don't mean anything to you. I mean, it's good to get the recognition.
They're fun to talk about.
They are fun to talk about, and just for context for people at home, just to see where we are in the national spectrum. However, you've got a few guys that are competing really hard. They're getting up in those rankings. Dylan Leidy up to 4 this week. My question is, as we head into Big Ten dual season, even at Midlands coming up in a couple weeks, the more success these guys have individually, the larger the targets to get on their back. They become bigger matches to each individual guy that they wrestle, and they're from this point out, and it's going to continue to get larger and larger. They're getting everyone's best shot. They're sending every duel you see, every tournament you go to, that they become the upset, the guy that these coaches are telling kids, if you beat him, you can go on to win this tournament. And that's the guys that you've got in this lineup right now.
Yeah. So I would argue heavily that you don't ever change your mindset. You don't ever move from the hunter to the hunted, which is essentially what you're talking about, I think, right? Like,
Right. Pardon the pun there.
As soon
with
as
the hunter.
as you change, every time you put your foot on the line, you are the hunter. That should never ever change. I don't care who you're wrestling.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't care if it's Iowa or Ohio State or Penn State. I don't care if it's another school. And I don't want to, put anybody on the spot, right? I mean,
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It just does not matter. And that's what you fight for as an athlete. Like, you should never take yourself out of that mindset. As soon as you put yourself in the hunted category, you got problems. You're probably trying to defend something that you don't even have yet. That's something that's not going to be settled until Saturday night in March, third week in March. So I think it's just so important that you don't ever, in your mind, change that. And that's something we always emphasize. And I've seen it happened this weekend. We had a guy who I thought went out and was trying to protect something that he didn't have, and he wrestled terrible. And it was a terrible result, consequently. And then the next day, he made a decision. He was almost like, I gotta go, man. I gotta throw all this away, this garbage in my head away, and go. And he went. And man, the hard work and the talent that he has, it was reflected. He had a pretty good day. Not a perfect day, but a pretty good day. So I just can't emphasize enough, man. You can never change your mindset from the hunter, to the hunted. You're going to hunt. When you put your foot on the line, you're going to do what you're trained to do, and you're going to go out and you're going to score your points, and you're going to wrestle every 20 seconds the way you're trained to wrestle your 20 seconds. And then you deal with the next 20 seconds and the next 20. You cannot change your mindset. If you do, you're going to be in trouble. And I can't emphasize that enough. That's a huge point, I think, for any wrestler in this sport to remember. Don't change your mindset based on the guy standing in front of you.
And that kind of ties into what we talked about before with Leidy, Schroeder, these guys placing highly at tournaments. Is top to bottom in this lineup, you can go and compete. That it doesn't matter what happened before this weekend, it doesn't matter what's going to happen after this weekend, that if you go out and compete, you're going to get the recognition, and it's going to feel really good come Monday, come Tuesday morning when the rankings come out. I'm sure Leidy feels very good right now to be getting that kind of recognition after getting the number 1 spot. I'm sure he knows, even though you don't like to talk about rankings, I'm sure he knows that he's up to 4. But of keeping that mentality that you're going to step on the line and you're as good as anyone that's going to step on the line across from you.
That's the key, right? Like you need to know, I'm good. I'm good enough to win, right? I'm good enough to win everything. I'm good enough to win it all. But I got to go do the work. I got to execute, and I'm not going to change my mindset to do it. You've got to think every day about what it's like I got to be careful how I say this. I don't want to confuse people. But you got to think about the national championship every day, right? Like every day when we end to go and I say, okay, hey, it's sudden death, takedown wins. In your mind, this is Saturday night in overtime, and I got to go get my takedown. And if you put yourself there every day, when you get to Saturday night, third week in March, I've been there a million times. This is not something that's going to overwhelm you.
Sure.
It's not something that's going to make you necessarily pull back and be cautious. You hope, right, that the fact that they've practiced this and rehearsed this mentally every day from the time this, we started, or every day of the year, for that matter, that I've been here, I've done this, now let's go execute. And there's confidence in that, and there's composure in that. So that is more what I would say than letting a match build up in your mind in importance. They're all important, right? Every match is important. Every time they're not special. You don't want to make a match special.
Yeah.
As soon as you make it special, you change your mindset. Now you're the hunted instead of the hunter. But you got to say, hey, they're all important.
Of course.
I got an opportunity to compete, man. It's important. Let's do it.
Well, Vegas in the rearview mirror. Finals week also in the rearview mirror, which is
Not in the rearview mirror yet, buddy.
Oh, we're
Let's not put that to bed
dead
yet.
smack in the center.
Oh yeah, dead smack in the center. Last week was dead week. This is finals week.
There we
It's
go.
been that long since
Finals-
you were a student, huh? Come on.
Finals week will be in the rearview mirror very soon. For a lot of these guys, I mean, it's a very stressful time. Student athletes, of course, but getting into the part of this couple week stretch here where scheduling gets a little bit easier for you, just because these guys, they've got classes to worry about, they've got homework, they've got tests and stuff to worry about. Their schedules open up for the next couple weeks. What does the schedule look like over the course of the next couple weeks? And before, we won't get into SIUE too much today, but
This week it's a different schedule because we're working around finals, so it wasn't their regular class schedule. So you have your conflicts worked out for your semester. Now it's truly based on where they have their finals. Like today, we're not going till later. Typically, we're at 2:00 workout, and now we're going at 3:30 just because of how finals are. So we really adjust and we work around the finals. When we can have everybody in the room together. And so it's a little bit of an awkward schedule this week, different from what they've experienced. But once we get down to Saturday, we flip over. Obviously, we've got Southern Illinois coming up next Thursday, the 19th. So then we'll flip over, and it'll be, a lot of two-a-days, with technique or lifting in the morning. And we'll come in the afternoons and have practice. And we don't have to worry about, school. So it's a nice time to just really focus on training, and we try to make jumps then. We'll try to make some jumps because there's no other distractions. So it's about, hey, let's get our training in, head over to Southern Illinois and compete hard, compete well, and then we're going to take a break, kick them loose for Christmas. So that's what you want out of that next block. Let's put finals behind us, and then let's solely focus on the business at hand and go into break. Feeling good about the work we've put in.
And I'm sure it's probably good to break that schedule up a little bit, break these guys out of their routine. I mean, I know you say you only move practice a couple hours, but even for this week where they've got finals at specific times, of just breaking that routine and having guys adapt to, okay, instead of at 2:00 today, we're going at 4:00 today, and then maybe I'm a little bit more tired at 8:00 tonight because we went a little bit later in practice. Breaking that routine a little bit is probably helpful for some guys.
Yeah, I think that's, it's always good to keep some things fresh, right? I mean, they got it in my mind. I don't know if they consider this an extra day kind of off, but coming out of Vegas, they had Monday off, and then yesterday was just a lift and a condition. We didn't get on the mat, so it's nice to kick them, with something different. Instead of just going right back to the mat. I really believe we're in shape and relatively healthy. You're always a little nicked up coming out of a weekend like that, but we're in a good place. So
we came out pretty good, all things considered.
Yeah, and so it's just more about mentally keeping people excited, right? Like I like where we're going, and we will make corrections technically, which we've talked about a few guys. We'll fix those things, but it's, you want to stay excited about what you're doing, stay fresh mentally,
And I'm sure staying mentally fresh is something that you're going to have to focus on the next couple weeks, because this past weekend, Vegas, off this weekend, next weekend, SIUE, off a weekend, and then Midland. So for the next 3 weeks, almost 4 weeks, they have one match. They have to make one time.
Well, that will be kind of the year. I mean, obviously the quality of the competition with Big Tens is going to remain strong, but by design, when I was doing the schedule last year, I wanted a lot of volume early, and I still wanted to get tested, but we wanted to kind of pick and choose our spots and be tested. And so now, honestly, we will have more time to train and sharpen. Our match count is up where we need to be. For people who aren't aware, you need 15 matches from an RPI standpoint. Most guys are going to have that, or will very nearly have that. So, I'm not worried about guys not getting their qualification standards or things.
Right.
This is coach talk. The guys, they show up and wrestle. But for me, I wanted some match counts up earlier so that if we get hurt late, it doesn't affect us in our qualification stuff. And so I feel very good about where we're at from a match count stuff. So now literally it's just, let's just sharpen.
And you saw that last year with a couple guys. Their match count wasn't where it needed to be. So instead of wrestling duels late, they had to go wrestle some open tournaments and get a couple matches versus one here. And not having to weigh that stuff has got to be so.
And then you're rolling the dice on whether or not you're going to get D1 matches at some of these open tournaments. It's crazy when you try to you're doing the math and you're constantly counting and you're constantly like Tony and I submitted a question to the NWCA this week to try and figure out pardon me, how a medical forfeit works into that stuff, because we're not entirely sure. And so you don't want to get too caught up in it, but you're always thinking about it.
I mean, it's the system.
That's my job,
That's
right?
your job.
Coaches coach and wrestlers compete, and so I don't want our guys to worry about that. Hey, when you put your foot on the line, we're all in and go. But for my part, I want to put this team in the best place to qualify and be at national. That's our job. We want to be there and have the opportunity to win your national titles and be an All-American, do that. So, and you'll find, and this side note, just real quick, you'll find coaches do it a different way. Some guys go light up front and they build on the back end, you know what I mean, to get there, right? I thought, I wanted to hit a couple tournaments early, kind of get our match count where we need to be, and then, it's kind of just get sharp, work to your peak in that way. So you might get different perspectives from different coaches. This is kind of the route that with this team this year that I took.
The other thing, maybe it's intentional, maybe not, but to have some downtime before a big tournament and then some downtime before a big tournament, that's how Big Tens is. You've got your last duel, then you've got almost 2 weeks off before Big Tens. Then you've got almost 2 weeks off before NCAAs. So that time to sharpen, you talk about, going to these tournaments and guys figuring out the rhythm. Okay, when do I need to start getting loose? When do I need to start getting warm? It's kind of the same thing on a macro level.
Yeah, no, I think you always, these events, right? And we talked, before we went to Vegas, it's a deep field, right? Over 100 ranked kids and the number of ranked teams. So it is. It's kind of like a mini Big Ten, and nationals. And so you try to work your training cycles out where you can work to a little bit of a peak. We're not peaking for Vegas, right? By no means was that what we're doing. But you want to be ready. So you work to a mini peak. Okay, and then you're gonna be at a level for a while, and then you're gonna train again and make a jump, and then you're gonna kind of hold that, and then you're gonna make your last jump, right, going into Big Tens, and then you're gonna want to hold at a high level for those last 2 weeks of the season. So it's about working to your peak, what that looks like, and every year we'll just start at the end of the year, and we'll work backwards. We'll start in March, and then we just work backwards to the front of the season about where you're training, where you're peaking, and those things.
Well, Southern Illinois, Edwardsville coming up in a couple weeks. Like I said, off this weekend. So next weekend we'll preview SIUE. We'll also preview Midlands next week as well, because we'll have a show next week, and then we'll take a couple weeks off for the holidays as the team takes some time off for the holidays as well. So we'll be back at the beginning of the year, but we'll still have a show next week to preview the couple weeks ahead. Coach, thanks for your time today. Look forward to the rest of the season.
Absolutely. One thing I do want to say is my sister-in-law Tammy.
I was getting scared.
Show.
I was getting scared about where this was
I
going
know,
for a
right?
second.
No,
Put that pregnant pause in there,
we
too.
talked about all that food, right? And I think Tammy listened. And I'm hoping for some cookies. This is my public shout out again.
Oh,
man.
We need to sample the cookies.
I love cookies.
Back when we come back on Christmas break.
We'll
So,
do a live review. We'll have a
Tammy-
review on the show.
Yeah, Tammy, get them ready.
I had no problem eating cookies on the
we'll have
podcast.
a taste test, and then feel free to throw in a few other items if you want. I'll be back for Christmas on the 23rd.
We're gonna go off air now and continue our food debate.
I will gladly try anything that gets sent on camera. Whatever they've got. Cookies.
Okay.
Cookies.
Glad you clarified.
Yeah, we got the
qualify things.
Olympic trials, the 21st and 22nd down in Dallas. We'll be down there with Jake. Jake, Suflone's going to be competing.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to be a little delayed getting home, but I always look forward to seeing the family and the cookies.
In that order.
And the cookies.
Well, until next week, send questions, comments, anything you have at Purdue Wrestling on all social media platforms.
Appreciate all the great feedback. Talked to a bunch of guys out in Vegas from the various media outlets. Got a lot of good stuff on the podcast. They like what we're doing, and we appreciate that support, and it makes us feel good that we know that people are listening.
It does. But anything we can do better, please
Let us know.
Be sure to let us know. We'll work in any comments or questions you might have. So for head coach Tony Ursland, Tanner, Corey, I'm Hunter. As always, boiler up.